There's another pair of stamps on the show that are separate from the one day special with the bride and groom, which Trudie's drawn. Obviously you can use them separately as they are separate stamps, but I'm going to show you how to create this lovely wedding card with the bride and the groom on together. Now there is a sample that Joanne has sent in where she's masked off the groom. So she stamped him, then she's put a mask over, and then she's managed to put the bride right up next to him. I'm pretending that in this scenario that the bride's just coming up to meet the groom. That's my story anyway. So we're going to do this, but we're going to do it in silver and white rather than in gold and the almond hue. So the two sets that we're using are, as I say, the bride and the groom. The bride, obviously, she's just there on her own, and she's got different sentiments going with it. Obviously the Mr. and Mrs. are separate, so you could have two brides or two grooms if you wanted. And then the groom's here, and he's got loads of sentiments with him as well. But they're both sizable stamps, as you can see here. It is a DL size stamp set. So I've cut the largest but one of the double debossed rounded corner rectangle out of the pure white card, and I've popped it onto the largest of the Stamp Perfect blocks, just because, you know, I can do this all in one go if I do it this way. And also it means that if you were batch making, say if this was an invitation, say, you can actually just do lots and lots of them. I'm using the Wow embossing pad, giving it really good inking. Make sure I'm not missing any bits, because obviously although I'm using the Stamp Perfect, I can't actually see whether I've missed anything until I've got my embossing powder on. So ink it within an inch of its life. Make sure I've done his head. I think we're there. And then close the lid and give it a good old press. Now they are slightly over to the left because I want to put my flowers on the right, so I thought about how I wanted to lay my card out. You could have them close, and as I say, if you just stamp the groom, then mask him off, and then you can stamp the, no, you wouldn't do it that way around actually, you'd stamp the bride, and then you'd, because you want her in the foreground, and mask her off, and then stamp the groom to look like he's behind her. Good if I told you the right thing, really, wouldn't it? It's all trial and error anyway, most of it. Okay, I think we're good. I'll remove that from there, and I did dust the card with an anti-static bag first, because obviously I'm using embossing powder and I don't want any stray powder to be anywhere. Now we're using the pure silver from Sentimentally Yours, and it is an anti-static powder in an anti-static pot, so you do want to store it back in its original pot. I'm getting to the point where I need another one. I'm going to do all my heat setting together aside from you guys, so you don't actually hear me see that. So we'll come back and see what that looks like. But I want to do some more stamping, and I'll do all my heating separately. Right, so this is the biggest of the rectangles, and I've already anti-static this as well. And I'm going to do myself a background, and I'm using the lovely lacework A6 rubber stamp, which is new today as well, and I'm going to be a bit random with this, so there's not going to be any thought going on at all. So I'm just going to, with the stamp in my hand, so stamp hand in it, I'm just going to press it into the ink and figure out roughly where I want it. Try to remember where I started, so that's corner 2. And again, I won't see whether I've done a good job of this until I actually add my powder on. I could add more, but don't forget most of this is going to be covered up by our rectangle that's going on top. That's my background all stamped. my embossing powder to this. I might have to do this in 2 sections because I'm running out. Don't worry about how it looks, it's going to be fine. Because it did look a mess to me to begin with, and I almost threw it away. So I've gone over that one, but that's fine because that's going to be my corner where I'm going to put my flowers. Obviously forgot how far I'd gone round with that one. I've got edges of the stamp on as well, but that's at the point where it's going to be hidden anyway, so that's fine. Your pot will be full, mine's nearly empty. Gold and silver and clear are and white, those 4 are the ones I use most of. Don't worry about how that looks. That'll look fantastic when we come back and have a look at it heat embossed. That's that bit. Then I want to stamp a sentiment. So I've got I know we don't have the ovals on the show, but I wanted to use an oval. I know a lot of you have got the ovals, and I'm going to grab the wedding day sentiment, which is from the groom, and I'm going to stamp the sentiment in my oval. Let's see if I can get it straight. Okay, and then we'll add our powder to that one. When you're piling all these up to heat emboss, don't put them on top of one another. I haven't done. I know it's behind the scenes, but I haven't done. I've remembered. And one final bit of stamping. I want to put some flowers on this one. You can't have a wedding card without flowers. So this is, we've got the romantic set on the show. So this is a set of, I'm sure it says on here how many stamps there are. Yeah, 15 stamps, and you've got dotted ones, and then you've got plain ones with like a double border. And the romantic flowers have all got this kind of serrated edge on them, and they coordinate with the die that's also on the show as well. So I'll just stamp one of these. In fact, no, I won't. I'll stamp 2 because I need 2 for my flowers. And when you're stamping them, make sure that you leave enough space around the outside for the die to actually cut them out. That's one. One more. About here. And then we'll add our powder to this. You've got those lovely little dots going on. So I'm going to heat emboss all of this, and then we'll come back and we'll do the next step. Okay, so I've embossed everything, and I've also added diamond dazzle glitter around the edges with a bit of the Sentimentally Yours glue, and I'm ready to start putting my layers together and adding a little bit of colour. So this one, it still looks a little bit messy, but still don't panic, because as soon as we bring in our bride and groom, it transforms it completely and it looks really lovely, I think, anyway. But before we stick that on, I'm just going to add a little bit of colour to the flowers that the bride's holding. So just pull that off there, and I'm grabbing the very light pink that's in the set, and we just put a little bit onto my craft sheet for now, and taking my water brush and just picking that colour up and just adding it to the flowers. Because it's embossed, you don't need to be particularly careful, and we do want a bit of a watercolour look. Now remember that this card is the pure white card, it isn't a watercolour card, but yet the pens are going on there absolutely fine. That's my flowers. Then I need a little bit of the green in the set. I want the lightest green, I think. If you could see the mess that's beyond this mat. No space. So just a little bit of the green on the mat, and then we'll just add a little bit of green to the bouquet. Obviously, you know, if you know what colours the bride is having for her flowers, then you can colour these accordingly. Okay, so that's that all done. Get rid of the little bit of pen. And now we can add this to glue this in place onto our background. Just with the Sentimentally Yours glue. Don't put too much. Use it as a bit of a nozzle in there. Right, see if I can get this straight. See how that messy background isn't messy anymore. Who'd have thought? Nobody knows what's going on underneath that. That's where you don't need to panic. Okay, so put that to one side while I do my flowers. I'll show you what I did with my flowers. So we're using the Romantique flowers, and these are the flowers. So I've stamped 6 of them. You can see the colours of them that I've stamped, and embossed them in the gold. And I've done it on the pure white card twice, each size twice, and I've also done it on the vellum as well, and then cut them out with the coordinating dies. Now on the back of the vellum, to give them a bit of colour, I'm just going to add a little bit of that same pink pen that I used on my bouquet, and then get my water brush going. Make sure it hasn't got green on it, and then just pull that colour out. And vellum reacts with the water, and it has a mind of its own. You have no control over it whatsoever. So if you're a bit of a control freak, don't do this, but I think it's really cool. What happens is, as soon as the water starts to dry, the vellum starts to curl. So it's doing its own thing. So I'm going to just leave it to do its own thing there and show you how I shape the flowers. So I've just used my thumb and finger underneath the petals to give them a little bit of a rounded edge. And I'm going to use 2 of the same size in the white together, and offset those and glue them together. I've got some flowers already here that I've done. And I like to use this foam mat to pop them on. A little bit of glue in the centre, and then offset them so it fills in the gap and makes a full flower. And then use an embossing tool to really press down to make sure that glue's adhered, because you're dealing with embossing powder in there. Now this is still curling and having a mind of its own, and when that's dry, then I just pop that in the centre. So they end up looking like that. You can see that they've got a complete mind of their own. They're not going to do anything particular, they're just going to curl. But that little bit of colour is just lovely. So we're going to add our flowers to our card. See if I can get my glue to stick. Right, so my flowers are coming down in this corner here at the bottom of the bride's dress. And pop some leaves on. I've got these are the not the leaf, yeah, the leafy fronds. That's what these ones are. So we're going to add these first down the bottom. Just at the bottom of her dress. Obviously it's optional to have flowers, but I think for a wedding you need them. Just makes it a little bit more special. And then another one just up there. And I do like to make sure that there's glue everywhere. Not all over my card, but obviously everywhere on the actual leaves, just because I don't like them floating around, and they don't want to stick because of the glitter, but they will do in a minute. Then I'm going to take the biggest flower, just add that one in there. Normally I don't put my pearls on until after I've done this bit, but I didn't really want you to watch me fiddling around with pearls. And then we want the next biggest one just down here. I'll do that in a second. And then we put this one just up here. Like that, so we're doing a little spray around the bottom of her dress, just with the leaves poking out. And then then I'm going to add the sentiment, just with a bit of foam tape. She can just nestle in there. And then we're going to add our final few flowers at the top, because I don't really want them around the groom. So got that one there. That's the largest of the last three, and we'll pop this one over here, and it can go over the sentiment just a little tiny bit. And then this small one just here. I'll fiddle around with that, getting the glue to stick. But there's our silver version, a bit there. And I'll just bring in the gold to really show you the gold, so you can see the two different versions together. I know they won't all fit in the camera, but there we go. Same card, two different colourways.